This is the Nike Phantom GT2, and this might be the most pointless upgrade I've ever seen. The boot's worn by the likes of Mason Mount.
I reckon I'm half human, half weight right. With the size of these knackers.
Jack Grealish.
Yeah, it's a masterclass, wasn't it?
Kevin De Bruyne.
Let me talk! Let me talk!
And of course, the best right back in the world right now, Takeru Tomiyasu. No points for guessing what team I support. Now, the GT2 is one of the most boring releases I've ever seen from Nike, and I've been very critical of the previous generation and also this generation. But just because they're boring and not interesting doesn't mean they're necessarily a bad boot. So I put my money where my mouth is, I bought a pair, and in this video I'll be going through some of the tech specs, some of the changes from the previous generation, if there are any really, as well as giving you an on-feet view of how the boots look. Now, taking a closer look at the boots, they come with a drawstring bag like all top-end Nike boots, and here I've got the launch colorway that came out in, I think it was around July or so. In the black, grey and light blue. I've got the low cut variation. It comes in two, so you've got that low cut and you've got the higher variation with the dynamic fit collar. If I were you, I'd always go with the lower. It's cheaper by around £20, and in my opinion, paying £20 for a sock is never worth it, in my opinion, unless it's on sale or whatever and you can get it, but like, it's up to you. I think the dynamic fit collar is only there for maybe really comfort reasons, but £20 for comfort, when the boot themselves are like, there's not much difference in terms of performance, it's not really worth it to me, but hey, each to their own. So, looking at the boot themselves, there's not much change from the previous generation, if any at all. The only really thing is the kind of texturing on the top, but I'll get that later. So, in terms of things that I kept the same, still flat made from a flying upper, still got the same asymmetric lacing, same sole plate, which I actually quite like. It's one of the best things about the boot themselves. It's got this high, I think Nike call it the hyper quick for, creative players, quick change of direction, yada yada, all that kind of stuff that Nike, all the buzzwords Nike usually use essentially. I quite like it's an aggressive sole plate. Should give a good amount of traction, but we'll see. And it's got also this like kind of like open area for like, I guess with the GT on it as well, I guess we do control the ball from that with that side of part of your foot from time to time. But and like always, it's got the Nike ACC, but this time in 3 different languages. So if you want to learn, if you speak English, you want to learn French or I think Japanese, you've got the kanji and you've got the French versions here for you to learn. So let's go on to like the only real major change and the reason why Nike have decided to actually release a second generation of the boot themselves. So as you can see, if you're familiar with the previous generation, you can see the general texturing on the boot has changed. It's not in those like lines, it's now more like chevron shaped, and chevrons always give more grip, I guess. But what is strange is how it kind of contradicts the marketing that came out with the first generation of the boot itself. So Nike put out all this stuff engineered for maximum efficiency when controlling the ball by putting lines and grooves in like certain patterns and directions to optimize ball control, and then they've now kind of contradicted that with this. I don't know, maybe they've done more testing or whatever and found this is a more optimal shape, and then but I don't know, maybe it was just a gimmick as well. Like the first one was a bit gimmicky where you had the grooves everywhere apart from like the swoosh, but now they've changed that, so like it's now consistent pretty much everywhere. And then in terms of direction, the chevron stars, they go all in the same direction. So I don't know, they kind of remind me of a teeth like of an anaconda, the whole chevron thing. So like, yeah, it should supply a much good amount of grip, but we'll get to see that in the review in the coming weeks. The boot themselves, they're a very odd boot. They're not like marketed towards a specific type of player. I guess you see all types of players wearing them nowadays. You see defenders, you see goalkeepers, strikers, midfielders wearing them all. So it's not really marketed towards a certain position or certain type of player. The boot is said to be like a combination of the CTR, the Hypervenom, the Vision, the Phantom Venom, and the Magista, if I've not said that already. Yeah, we'll see. That's a very interesting thing to put across, and maybe it's high praise as well. I've heard from like other reviews and whatnot that it feels like the first generation of the Phantom Venom, which is very good praise. It's my Phantom Venom 1 is my favorite boot of all time, so we'll put that to the test. And yeah, in terms of changes and tech spec, that's pretty much it. Nothing real has changed. from the previous generation is pretty much just a shameless release from Nike, really. I would say I do prefer like the graphic design on the upper on this generation to the previous generation, but I guess it would depend and vary from colorway to colorway. But overall, I'm happy with the way the boot looks, but we'll see how it performs. Now, before we talk about the boots, let's go over a few things. I know what you're thinking, first of all, and I'd like to say this. Mind your own business. Second of all, yes, I know I'm wearing boots on carpet, but they're straight out of the box. They're still very clean, so it should be fine. And number 3, yeah, I probably should have vacuumed my room before I filmed this, but hey, here we are. Oh, and number 4, mind your own business again. Okay, so onto the boots themselves. I'm wearing my usual 9.5 UK, and they fit very, very well. They fit a tiny bit longer, but it's like almost like you're in between sizes. But I would say this, if you like your boots to feel tight, I would say stay true to size, just like I have here. In terms of how they feel straight out of the box, they are very, very, very stiff, like uncomfortably stiff. So the breaking period, I don't know how long that will take, but hopefully it softens up very quickly and I can break into the boots very quickly. I heard in other reviewers, they've talked about how if you had issues with the previous model in terms of like chafing in the heel, you might have the same issue here. We'll see about that. I kind of had blisters when I broke in my Mercurial Vapor 13s, and these boots remind me in terms of how they feel like the Mercurial Vapor 13s. Like the GT is probably like, I feel to be described as like a wide feet Mercurial. So yeah, there is that as well. So yeah, I would say if you are narrow to wide feet, these boots they should be good for you. It's not like I said, just a wide feet Mercurial, so it should be fine. Yeah, and that should be it for the on feet section of the video.